In order to understand how to relate to music, we need to understand how life itself is made. And it's from that basic reality that we then determine everything that we do in the spiritual life. Everything that we do is designed to attune us to the highest possible reality. There's an interesting observation that Kriyanandaji made many years ago. He told the story of a king, an emperor now I can't remember whether it was Japan or China, but one or the other. And the emperor, of course, is the king, and they're responsible for every aspect of society. And this emperor wanted to know how everything was going in his country. But if the king goes down the street, you don't see normal. You see everybody is acting best behavior. So he would disguise himself, and he would go and sneak around and look and see what was going on. And the thing is that the thing that he went particularly to hear, to decide how things were going in his kingdom, was the music. Because music represents not just sound, but consciousness. Music represents the consciousness of the composer, the qualities of consciousness associated with the instruments themselves, and of the performers. And all of those things, and the consciousness of the audience, the people that are participating in the totality. And when we look at it that way, it's very different than just hearing a song and saying, oh, I like it, I don't like it. Because that doesn't really have much power. What was there before the creation? Imagine no creation. What's there? Anybody have a thought on that?
Stillness.
Stillness. Okay. Any other thoughts?
Light.
Actually, incorrect. Without the light is part of the creation. During the night of Brahma, no creation. What's there? No sound, no vibration. Energy, but not in the form that we're used to thinking. Isn't this interesting? Well, what is God? God is the creator. That means that God exists before the creation. That means that somehow God made the creation. So what was God before the creation, without the creation? God is omnipresent consciousness, infinite consciousness. Now, we have attributes we talk about in the classes, the attributes of God. The most commonly known, the Satchidananda, ever existing, ever conscious, ever new bliss. But that doesn't require a creation. It's just pure consciousness. And within that, it is all potential of love, bliss, peace, calmness, understanding. But sound and light are not a part of the unmanifested spirit, God beyond the creation. Because we're used to thinking, where is God? Where is God? If God is the creator, then God must be, I think most people think God must be way out there somewhere. Yeah. But God has become the creation. God is the unmanifested spirit has become manifested. And that manifestation is at its very root omnipresent eternal spirit consciousness. But in order to create the creation, God had to do it with something. God didn't have cement. And he didn't have any workers. And this whole creation came out of God's consciousness. All life potential, all creation potential, the power of the creation, it all comes from God. It's in an unmanifested potential beyond the creation. It's hard to imagine. So God doesn't dream, but in the night of Brahma, I think God is going, what am I going to do in the daytime? And think, how did it go last time? God isn't doing that. God is God, is bliss, is peace, is love. And that's enough. But in order to create the creation, God had to bring out of his consciousness something that was what we call manifested. Not unmanifested, but manifested. And in order to do that, he had to take into account the duality. Yin and yang, up and down, positive and negative, light and dark. And so the whole creation is made on the principle of duality. But there's two forces, property and aproperty. The outward flowing nature, God flowing out into the creation, and God flowing back into the creation. Now, in Indian tradition, the way that this is described is Brahma, Vishnu, and Shiva. Brahman is God beyond the creation. Brahma is the creator. Vishnu is the preserver, keeps it going. And Shiva is that energy that draws it back into infinite spirit. And Brahma, Vishnu, Shiva are the three aspects of Om. Om is the manifestation. In the real way to understand the creation is Om Tat Sat. Sat is God beyond the creation. Tat is the untouched spirit in the creation, but undiluted by it. The Krishna consciousness or the Christ consciousness. And then Om is the manifestation, the outward manifestation of limitation. God, the creation. The creation is a limited expression of the divine. And so as a part of that, Om was created, those three aspects. But it's under the law of duality. And if you want to make sound, you have to, the pitchfork, you hit the pitchfork and it vibrates like this. And the whole creation is the vibrational, magnetic materialization of the consciousness of the divine, working through causal beings, astral beings, and material flesh and blood beings. And so the whole creation, remember Sir Edward Arnold's translation of the Gita is called the Song Celestial. The whole creation is God's song. God is singing a song. It's a vibration. And when we practice meditation, one of the things we learn to do is tune into the Om, not just the sounds, but the vibration of Om. In the Western tradition in Christianity, Om Tat Sat is the Father, the Son, and the Holy Ghost. The Holy Ghost is Om, the Divine Mother, and the creation. And we say Mother Nature. This is the whole creation is Mother Nature. So, why am I talking about this? Because what is the purpose of life? From our point of view, when we say, what's God's purpose? God is singing a song. But God it's an orchestra. It's like a huge orchestra. And each of us has a part to play in that universal song. But we have to learn how to play, we get a choice. We can be one of the players that's playing out of tune. and causing problems in the orchestra. Or we can become a player that plays the proper notes at the proper time and eventually is totally inspired, complete attunement with the manuscript and the conductor, totally in tune with it. And this is the experience that we have in life. We come into the human form from lower forms, and when you first become a human, you're not very good at it. You're a limited human. But the highest human is a free soul. They're able to manifest in the most pure way. So our goal in the spiritual life is to learn how to sing the life of spirit flowing through our lives in harmony with God's orchestral piece. And in order to do that, we have to learn how to play the instrument of our consciousness in the best way. With this understanding, we can begin to understand how music affects us. What are the three qualities of life? The gunas. Everything, all of life is the gunas. What are they? Tamas. Tamas is downward pulling. That means that it makes you sing out of tune. Rajas, that's activating. That gets you going. But it can be going towards being out of tune, or it can be going towards sattva. Sattva is elevating, freeing. If you're sattvic, you're manifesting as much as possible God's intention for your life, for your a conscious awareness of God's presence. Okay, so as yogis, we approach life with the consciousness of learning how to perceive and manifest consciously the gunas in our lives. We want to remove as much tamas. We want to use rajas to lead us towards sattvic, elevating. So, if we realize that, then we have to realize that in order to live well, you have to look at every part of your life and say, what guna is being represented here? And in life, mostly there's a mixture. And to also to realize that at certain stages of life, you need more outwardness, and then you may be able to handle more inwardness later on. But I'm remembering something. I want to go back a little bit. Underneath Om, I talked about the Christ consciousness, the Krishna consciousness, that divinity that is within, underneath the substructure, is the substructure of the creation, but is untouched by it. When we talk about this is the Christ center, the spiritual eye, the Kutastha Chaitanya. So when we talk about all of our energy, the Master said, live at the spiritual eye. He was saying, live connected to the omnipresent consciousness of spirit, which is untouched by duality. So that means that consciousness is stillness. That consciousness is the unmanifested spirit, the spirit untouched by the creation, is absolute calmness. So we are learning how to take vibration, different levels of uncalmness, always to calmness, always to center, always to stillness. So you have to understand that every life experience, when experienced as a yogi, it takes you to the center. You take to your center, you offer it up to the spiritual eye. And whether it's tamasic, rajasic, or sattvic, the same process is what you need to do in order to be connected in the highest possible way to spirit consciousness. So, when we look at music, we have to realize that music can be uplifting, or it can be downward pulling. And the effect of the music is in the way that it was made, what it represents, the way that it was performed, and then what we did with it after we received it. So I remember Kriyananji telling a story about having to go to see somebody in the red light district of San Francisco. And all this dark energy. What did he do? He started chanting Sri Ram, or Maha Mantra, Hare Krishna, Hare Rama, not loud, but to himself. And he became so absorbed in that, he felt only peace and calmness. He was unaffected by all of the agitation of that environment. And when we chant in the beginning, oftentimes we activate it, we energize it. You have to have energy. But you have to take that energy in the direction of stillness, this basic mechanism. We practiced this when we did chant at Om. We're doing something outward, but we're taking it to center. And when we, what is a very important part of meditation, sitting in the silence. One of the essential tools of music is learning how to listen. So we're going to practice that now. We're going to practice listening consciously, and then we'll do some other things that should be fun. So you have certain yogic knowledge already. Yeah, I'm going to trying to take that into account. So what I want you to do is listen to something that I'm going to play and observe how it makes you feel. Okay? How does that make you feel? Happy. Rajasic. Energy. And it was energy. Anything else? It kind of makes you want to get up and go. Yeah.
It's like going on a drive with a nice sunny afternoon.
Yeah, kind of happy and friendly, but energetic and moving forward. Yeah. Okay. Now I'm going to play the same notes. This is the same chords, but I'm going to play them differently. How was that different? So it was calm. Same basic notes. I played them a little differently, but it took us to a very different place, didn't it? Now I'm going to take the same notes, and I can't do this as well as I'd like to for this demonstration, but I think you're going to get the point. So here's another way of playing the same chords, the same notes. How does that make you feel? What if I added some words? Okay, so I'll add some words. I'll go. The first one. I'm a happy person. I'm walking down the street. we're going to have a good time today. Okay, that fits. Okay, and this one? Om Shanti, Om Shanti, Peaceful. I'm angry with the world, I don't like anybody, I just want to get out of my own and leave you all behind. But isn't that a lot of what, there's a lot of modern music that's pretty angry. I have to say, Bollywood music tends to be energetic. And even when they're trying to be worldly, they're still kind of innocent. American music can really get rough. And there's bands that they're cussing, they always seem to be angry. They're just angry. So, and the thing is, back in the 70s, there was a very well-known group, top musicians. I mean, these were the royalty of rock and roll capabilities. And so they're playing, rock music, but they're singing words in the presence of the Lord. So they're going, in the presence of the Lord is all peace and love. You go, wait, there's something wrong with this picture. Every music, every sound that we make is an expression of consciousness. Your voice, the qualities of your voice, they represent your consciousness. So when we take in the consciousness of an angry singer, a worldly singer, it doesn't matter what they're playing. They're still, so you can get well, let's do an experiment. Okay, here's a song that you probably all know. Row, row, row your boat gently down the stream. Merrily, 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 life is but a dream. Sing with me. Row, row your boat gently down the stream. Merrily, 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 life is but a dream. Okay, now let's think about consciousness and be. This is called acting. Okay, I want you to act the part and see what you feel. What this feels like. So it's a child. Okay, so a little child, they're not thinking that, life is a dream of omnipresent consciousness. They're rowing the boat, okay? And life is a dream is kind of a happy thought. So be a child in a boat, rowing the boat, singing, row, row, row your boat gently down the stream. Merrily, 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 life is but a dream. Row, row, row your boat gently down the stream. Merrily, 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 life is but a dream. Okay, so it's kind of innocent. We think of children as innocent and kind of happy, but it's still rajasic. It's not angry, but it's rajasic. And of course, there's plenty of times to be energetic in life. But if you were to, how many of you listen to the radio in the car? Okay, not too many, okay? I grew up listening to the radio. And so what you end up with is you're sitting in a car, surrounded by traffic, noises, and everybody's jostling. There's a lot of mental agitation taking place. You've got to impose your will on the situation in order to get down the road. And there's honking noises, and there's motor noises, and tire, all kinds of noises. And so along with that, you're listening to music that is, But most people think that that's normal. And the interesting thing is that once you get used to, you start kind of like that. Oh yeah, well, let's go, we're having fun. And this is, you know, so you look at this, the extravagant energy that people put into Bollywood music. And then they start moving their bodies in very provocative ways that represent, at best, Raja Raja, and invoke lower chakra energies and create agitation in the consciousness. And that is the thing that we have to realize, is that what are we trying to do when we meditate? We're trying to calm our consciousness. But what do we do when we listen to music that has agitating vibrations? We agitate our consciousness. Music is very powerful. Kree Nanaji read an article once about a young boy. I don't know, he was 8, 10 years old. He was walking on the beach in America somewhere, and he came across a dead body. And he was asked, well, didn't that bother you? And the guy said, no. And he said, well, why not? Why didn't that bother you? He says, because there was no music. If you listen to the music of the videos of the movies that you go to, you can tell what's coming next. Because as soon as dum 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 dum, you know that something, at least they might be tricking you. Like if it's in a horror movie, they want to build it up, dum 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 dum, but then it's dum 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 dum, boom. And now they utilize that in order to powerfully manipulate your consciousness. If you see somebody walking out of a movie, a Western, where they ride the horses, and you, maybe a spy movie. So the Western, everybody comes out like this. And the spy movie is like, and of course a horror movie is like, it has a huge reaction in our consciousness. And if we were talking about the food that you eat, you'd say that's junk food, and you'd regulate it. So, okay, let me eat a little, I'll eat this treat here, I'll balance it with some healthy food over here. Well, this is the same thing we need to do with music. And what happens over time, in the beginning, for example, if you have a child, they don't like their vegetables. But if they have vegetables over a long period of time, then eventually they may come to like the vegetables. And eventually they may find that the vegetables are the most pleasing. We grow, we change. We have to recognize the effect that it has on us. And some things, of course, you have to stop right away once you realize. Master was very strong about alcohol and recreational drugs. He was, the yogis don't do that. But even if a person coming from that background becomes a disciple, then if they do enough positive things, eventually those negative things will fall away. And this is something that we can use when it comes to music. So I did something, I used to travel a lot for work. I did video production, and I drove quite long distances in order to do these different jobs. And so I had different strategies of what to do in the car while I was going. And there were times when I would listen to just whatever radio station was available, because I was maybe falling asleep and I needed to keep awake. So I would turn on the AM station, and it would not necessarily be my version of rock and roll that I would have preferred. I mean, some rock and roll songs are not as bad as others. I mean, the Beatles were known for having some very beautiful melodies, you know. Michel, my belle, son des mon qui bon, très bien ensemble. That's not bad. But then they also had a song, something about rocket in the U.S. or rocket in Russia or something, rocket in the USSR. And it was a very hard driving rock and roll song. So, but I would listen to this music occasionally, and I didn't like the feel of it. But so I decided that I would do something. I've never been a person that had a library of music to listen to. But I decided I'm going to go on. You know, some people go on a juice fast, or you know, I'm only going to drink orange juice for a month. Okay, I went on a music fast, and I only listened to Korean music for a year. I said, okay, for 1 year, if I want to hear music in the car, I only listen to his music. And the effect was so dramatic that I signed up for another year. It was a very conscious thing that I did. And I invite you to experiment with this. Kriyananda's music has an incredible ability to make you feel good, to calm you down and make you feel good. Even his most rajasic music is somehow tied to that calm center. And this we need to practice when we chant. Chant the energy of the chant. Take it to your calm center, up the spine, connected to the spiritual eye. Everything should come to center, and then in and up. So when you listen to music, you need to listen to it vibrationally. In the 70s, there was the beginning of a strong trend in some newer Christian faiths. They began, one group was called the Warehouse Ministries. And you'd go to a big industrial warehouse, and there would basically be a Christian rock and roll band. And I think maybe eight or 9 years ago, my daughter somehow convinced me to go with her to one of these kind of newer ones. And I went to this church, and it was basically a Christian rock concert. They were not, in fact, maybe they mentioned God once, that when it wasn't a song. And most of their songs they take a quote from the Bible, and then they sing it. So they're singing, I love you, Jesus, it's so much fun. I mean, it's completely disconnected to Christ consciousness. They don't have any idea that they're becoming lost in a very limited, but you know, anytime you say God's name, it's good. I used to hear fellows cuss sometimes. In America, it's very common. People will say Jesus Christ as a swear word. It's derogatory. And when I first heard that, I was thinking, I can't allow them to say that. And the Christians will say, thou shalt not take the Lord's name in vain. But eventually, it wasn't like I could impose on these people not to act that way. But I changed the way that I listened to it. I began to, they were cussing, but I was going, oh, Jesus Christ, okay. I took that negative energy, I just filtered it off, and took the energy from the name of Jesus and found inspiration. This is something we need to do when we listen to all of life. So listening to the music of life is not just about music. It's about the people. It's about everything that's going on. Learning to listen and filter it so that you're not judging it, but you're discriminating. You're saying, look, I'm going to take this in and I'm going to filter that out. That doesn't go in. And it's really interesting. In America, there's at the petrol stations, most of them, they play music. They play rock and roll, radio. So you're going to put the petrol in, and you've got to listen to this, whatever the song is. But I questioned that. I said, well, do I really have to listen? And I learned that you don't have to listen, that you can turn it off. Have you ever had this is common, a piece of art in your home? It's on the wall, it's always there. Do you always look at it? No, after about a week, you hardly notice it's even there. You learn not to look at some things. I had in a house that I owned, there was like a decorative strip of paper, and it said coffee beans, different things. I don't drink coffee. That would be exactly the wrong decoration for me, because I don't like coffee. So when my friends would come to visit my house and they'd look at that and they go, that's odd. Why would you have such a thing here? And I said to them, what? Oh, is that there? I just don't see it. I just don't look at it. So why? I didn't need to change it because it didn't bother me. When you learn to focus your mind's energy, you can meditate in the marketplace. You turn the direction of your mind within, you withdraw from the sense of hearing, and you open yourself up to the inner consciousness. When we listen to music, no matter what it is, if you eat, how do yogis eat poison and not die? The same principle, they filter it. Their consciousness doesn't allow the negative energies of that circumstance to enter into their consciousness. They're able, and in those cases, even in a proactive way, to dissolve that negativity. Not only to be unaffected by it, but to dissolve it. So when we want to dissolve negativity, I've always loved the story of this a yogi who was the yogi of a village. And this village had a wall around it, and there was a gate. And these dacoits, this was in India, these dacoits were at the gate trying to take over and rob the village. And the villagers were not warriors, they didn't know what to do. Eventually, the dacoits broke through the gate, and what did they find? The yogi. And what did the yogi do? Om Shanti. It's powerful. There's a science fiction book called Doom. It's a series. And in that book, they talk about taking the basic elemental sounds, like a mantra, and animating it with some sort of technology, and they actually used it as a sound weapon. And of course, isn't this what many of the mantras of Tantra can be used for purposes that are not necessarily noble? You can use words. In fact, Krishnaji hypothesized that the reason that Atlantis fell was from the misuse of technology, but in a dark way. And the same in Africa, that he hypothesized that negative energies of dark interconnection to energy, the dark use of that, caused downfall of the consciousness. So when you feel that negative energy is coming towards you, you can do this silently, or you can do it actually outwardly. And I've done this, my friends, people who get to know me know that if they start to become agitated, a little excited, something really bothers them, and I let them go for a little while. Depends on how well I know them. But at some point, I may feel that enough's enough. And I will literally go, Om Shanti. It it's really, it's kind of scary to do sometimes, but it really works. I've never done it to someone who was trying to fight me. But if you do it with enough consciousness, Master had the power to keep people at a distance through his inner strength. And remember, the mantras that we practice, the chants that we do, they are all songs. They are all music, they're vibration. And when we connect our vibration to God's presence, then that universal potential becomes active. And the inspiration for music, where does music come from? In the highest forms, it comes from divine consciousness. Well, actually, in all forms. But higher and lower divine access, because Master said that all thoughts are universally rooted. That means that the ability to think at all comes from God, from a universal potential, according to our ability to utilize our mechanism of consciousness. So, just in the way that you would look at the food that you eat to determine what's going to be healthy for me, physically, but also spiritually, Master said that food is consciousness. We take in the consciousness of not only the food itself, but the environment in which it was prepared and served. So it's the kitchen as well as the dining table and the atmosphere of the dining room. So if you're listening to someone chant Om in a very busy Rajasic environment, it's much harder to tune into the essential connection than it is when you're in a place that everybody is fully connected to it. This is something else that I learned when I was a teenager, before I came on the path. I don't know how we ended up doing this, but we learned how to listen to music by inwardly entering into it, rather than just hearing it with your ego. So rather than foot tapping, we would go to stillness. We tried to be the music, to feel it on its most centrally connected way. And this we want to do. Kriyanandaji, when I first came to Ananda, he sang all the time. And his voice was just so drawing you in. All of the songs that we sing, of course in the early years, many of them hadn't yet been written, but the basic philosophy and songs, Come Gather Around, Go On Alone, Peace, all those songs he wrote in the early 70s. And he would play the guitar. He played pretty good. And he would just sing, just Swami singing. And you could just, he would sing some songs from India, and he wrote a song called Through Many Lives. Through many lives, I've sought your cup of sweetness. And you just learn to listen inwardly connected to Spirit. In that inward connection, and we want to live this way all the time, in that inward, silent, calm connectedness, we will perceive the vibrational contents from its point of view and the information about what God wants us to do with it. I'm hearing this, what does God want me to do with this? And should this be in my diet? If I've chosen to eat healthier foods, should I continue to eat this way? And you begin to consciously choose what you should listen to, and then you develop your ability to listen to it in a God-connecting way. You can feel closer to God even when somebody's playing the worst kind of rock and roll, if you've developed your ability to transmute. This is called transmuting the energy. And one of the key components to Tantra that most people don't understand is that you can use outward stimulation, as we do in chanting, to create an energy flow, which you then direct towards God, which takes you to a higher level. So you can use stimulation to go to stillness. But you have to practice in doing it. And if you don't do it successfully, then you end up with the Tantra yoga that most people talk about, which is sexuality. And they're saying, oh, well, I can enjoy this because it's leading me to God. But they never quite get to the God part of it. They only get involved in the enjoyment part of it. You have to learn how to take so when you're eating, we're allowed to enjoy what we eat. We're supposed to enjoy what we eat, but we say with the joy of God, not with the joy of ego satisfaction, which creates more desires. So we can listen to music, but listen to it with the joy of God. And do this experiment, listen to Kriyanandaji's music and how it makes you feel, and then listen to any other music, and begin to discern. It's like art. If you have no knowledge of art, you look at it and go, that's nice. But if you understand art, then you can understand the brush strokes, the color combinations, various aspects of the perspective, different, more subtle understandings. In other words, the technical and most importantly, the consciousness from whence that would present itself. And this is something that we want to do with everything. So we can learn from music how to filter, how to transmute, and then how to act in a way that leads to greater peace and joy in the world. So listen consciously and take it to stillness. We always offer everything to spirit at the spiritual eye. And when you're singing, you connect to the most calm, inwardly connected consciousness that you can, and then you express that through your sattvic personality. There's a tendency for people and this is valid, when you're learning to chant inwardly, there's a tendency to be very wooden. And even with the singers. So sometimes the singers come and everybody's, there's joy in the heavens, a smile on the mountains, and melody sings everywhere. Now, my body is not distracting from it, but it's a little too stiff. And certainly, personal taste can be a factor. But I observed this in Swamiji over the years, that there was a period of time when he was yogi. He even said this, if you look at the difference between the path, the original path, and the new path, then you find that later in life, he felt much more relaxed about expressing his personality in a very sattvic way. Where earlier he was, a new soldier is where the old soldier, but the old soldier is a more competent soldier than the new soldier. He knows how to be a soldier, but he knows that this isn't the most important part of being a soldier. That there's something, and there's an integration that takes place. So, if we learn to go within, learn to be still, but then learn to express that stillness in a natural sattvic way, through your natural, we talk about attune yourself to master. You don't become Yogananda, you become master omnipresent spirit. There is oneness there. But you don't become Yogananda, you become hopefully what Yogananda would look like if he was you. You see, your version of pure spirit manifesting in a lifetime. And this is the real song that we want to sing. We want to sing, but using music helps us to understand and to practice. how to get to stillness, and how to filter what we experience in life and to recognize that these are powerful forces. Music is a very powerful force. Om. Om is at the central creation of the creation. And when we're talking about music, the music of modern planet Earth, in most cases, is a very shallow, worldly, selfish, ego-centered experience. But in some areas, you listen to some of the concerts of Swami's music, and it is heavenly. It's like you close your eyes, and this is what you would imagine the choir in heaven sounds like and feels like. Learn to feel the music in your center. When you do that, you'll get a lot of information about how it's affecting you and whether you should let that in or not. And if you want to listen to something rajasic, then balance it with silence. Learn to listen at, there's some people who can drink alcohol all day long, they don't get drunk. They have some kind of physiological filtering system in their bodies. Well, yogis could do the same thing. They learn to filter. We need to learn to filter out the vibrations that are coming in that we don't want. And then we want to allow the positive energies of our consciousness to flow into your voice. So you devotees, from the city, hello, nice to meet you. I'm here. I want to learn about yoga. A little harsh, clippy. I'm here. Teach me. A little egotistical. Come on, hurry up. That's too much money. But after a while, their voices start to calm down. Oh, hi, welcome. This is a natural consequence of attunement to the purest forms of the Om vibration. Then our voice, and it's not just what it sounds like, but it's also what it feels like. And if you hear any of that in my voice, it's because I learned it from Swami. And I practice this sense of let your voice reflect your consciousness. It will anyway. And you can fake people out sometimes. But they say the eye ways is the window of the soul, the eyes. But also the voice. You hear somebody's voice, you can feel the qualities of their consciousness. And this is something that we want to recognize and then implement. And if you want to know how you're growing, we talk about signs of spiritual progress. Listen to your voice. Begin to hear it and see, that's a little less rough than it was last year or the year before. And if your voice is going in the right direction, that's a very good sign. That is a good sign. It's not just tonal quality, it's vibrational quality. I can sing off key, plenty my share, but that's different. So, I don't know if this is what you expected or not, but I have been interested in music most of my life. I've written songs, and I've been around Korean energy enough to have really thought about this and experimented with it. And if you become very conscious of the vibrations of what you're taking in musically, you'll see how your body and consciousness react to it. And then you can begin to make choices about what to listen to. And everything we do, really, everything that we do should be geared towards how does this affect me spiritually? And then how can I protect myself from it if I'm in an environment that I can't completely not be there? And then to arrange your life, your home space in a way that it promotes if I talk about music, what I'm mostly talking about is tuning into silence. How to take vibrational experience into silence. If you really want to know what this is about, take seclusion and don't talk for 2 to 4 weeks. Don't say a single word for 2 to 4 weeks. Get to the point where it's more natural not to speak than to speak. If you do that, you will realize how incredibly loud the voice is inside of the head. Imagine somebody's blowing a conch, but you're in the conch. That's what's going on when we speak. It's incredibly loud, and it takes a whole lot of energy. If we practice silence, if you do practice a mantra or chanting, you're not only see, singing is pranayama. Singing is pranayama. You're regulating your voice, and you're directing your consciousness. And if you sing sattvic music with a sattvic consciousness, you will be creating a sattvic vibrational magnetism in your consciousness. This is what we want. And that sattva leads to stillness. So practice stillness in your music, both as you listen and as you sing. And this consciousness of stillness, once learned, then you can relax a little bit. You don't have to be so rigid. But in the learning process, you have to tighten it up a little bit to develop this sense of stillness. It's very powerful. So the purpose of all life, I'll go that far, I was going to say just music, but the purpose of all life really is to take us to stillness. We have to learn to go to stillness. So chanting by itself isn't sufficient unless it takes us into that stillness. And when you sing not just for God, but sing with God. God is singing through you. And how does God want to sing through you? This is your channeling. This is how you channel. And whether it's singing or architecture or writing or shopping, it's God flowing through your consciousness. And one of the features of Indian music is most of the time is you have to dance too. There's dancing with the music. And life is a dance. Life, you're walking down the street, it can be a beautiful dance or it can be a war. And the more we're connected to spirit, the more it's a happy dance. Otherwise, the swords are swinging.